advantage in both goods? Would it be worth trading if one country could produce both more wine and more wool per worker than the other country? Another way of looking at this is to consider whether a person who is better at making both hats and shoes than someone else should split his time between the two jobs, or choose one job and then trade with the less skilled worker who makes the other product. Suppose that the superior worker is 20% better at making hats, but 50% better at making shoes. It will be in the interest of both of them if he works exclusively at making shoes, the product he really excels in, and the inferior man works in making hats, the product he is least bad at making. The logic behind this argument is to do with the relative costs of making a product, in terms of the amount of production time taken or lost. Because the superior worker is so good at making shoes, the cost of his making hats is high. He would have to forfeit a lot of valuable shoe production. Although in absolute terms, the inferior worker is worse at making shoes and hats than the superior worker, his relative cost when making hats is lower than for the superior worker. This is because he forfeits less shoe production per hat than the superior worker would. The inferior worker is therefore said to have a comparative advantage in hats, while the superior worker has a comparative advantage in shoes. When countries specialize in goods for which they have a comparative advantage, more goods are produced in total, and trade delivers more and cheaper goods to both nations. Comparative advantage resolves a paradox highlighted by Adam Smith. The countries that are inferior at producing goods, they are said to have an absolute disadvantage in them, can nonetheless export them profitably. 20th century advantage. What determines comparative advantage? Swedish economists